He clinked his glass and cleared his throat. That's when I knew something was off. It was during the toasts right after the maid of honor had made everyone laugh and cry, and right before the best man stood to speak. My brother, Drew, the groom, had slipped out of his chair at the head table and taken the mic himself. His new bride, Melanie, gave him a look, half confused, half amused, but didn't stop and then, with the whole reception hall watching, he looked right at me. At every wedding, there's that one family member, he said, smiling wide, who somehow always makes things about them. I laughed nervously with the crowd at first. I assumed he was setting up a joke, maybe about our weird cousin, Josh, or his college buddy who couldn't stop talking about cryptocurrency during dinner. But then he pointed at me. No offense, sis, but you know exactly who I'm talking about. The room fell quiet. A few awkward chuckles. I felt a dozen eyes snap in my direction. And I know you're probably itching to say something, to share a speech, to remind everyone that you were the one who helped me through Dad's death, or that you made it possible for me to get through college. My stomach sank. But let's keep tonight about me and Melanie, yeah? Not every story needs your name in it. He grinned again, like it was just a harmless joke, but I knew it wasn't. He meant it. Every word. He used his wedding toast to take a shot at me, to publicly silence me. The MC nervously clapped. A few guests shifted in their seats. My aunt gave me that pitying glance. The music came back on like nothing happened. People started talking again, laughing, eating cake. But I sat there frozen, heat crawling up my neck, hands clenched under the table. Drew had always been the golden child, the charming one, the center of attention. And I'd been okay with that for years. I didn't need the spotlight. I just wanted respect, to be treated like I mattered. But that moment, that speech, he made sure everyone knew exactly where he thought I belonged. Beneath him. Out of the frame. Before we continue, please write in the comments which country you're watching this video from. Enjoy the story. What made it worse? I hadn't planned to speak at his wedding. I wasn't on the list. I hadn't asked for a mic. I didn't even bring a +1. I'd flown across the country, taken days off work, spent money I didn't really have on a dress I'd never wear again, just to be here for him. For his big day. And he used it to humiliate me. Melanie had said nothing. Just sipped her champagne and whispered something to her maid of honor. I watched them both giggle. I wanted to get up and leave, storm out, make a scene, but I didn't single quotes d. Instead I smiled. I laughed like I was in on the joke. I raised my glass to him when he sat back down, because I knew something Drew didn't. The microphone wasn't the only way to be heard, and the night wasn't over yet, not even close. The rest of the reception passed in a blur of fake smiles and clenched teeth. I walked the edges of the room like a ghost, smiling for photos, nodding at distant relatives, making small talk with people I barely remembered. But inside I was spinning. His words kept echoing in my head like a stuck song lyric. Not every story needs your name in it. It wasn't just a cheap jab. It was meant to erase me, publicly. And Drew knew exactly what he was doing. He'd always been good at that, those sly, surgical jabs dressed up as jokes. When we were kids, it was teasing in front of his friends. In high school, it was mocking my college rejection in front of Mom. And now, it was this. A speech, on a stage. In a room full of witnesses, I watched him work the room after that. Laughing loudly, slapping backs, pulling people into photos. He was glowing, his tux crisp, hair perfect, every gesture rehearsed to the second. Melanie never left his side, except when she slipped off to the bridal suite with her sister for a touch-up. That's when I noticed something strange. One of the waiters, young guy, early 20s maybe, was talking to Drew, not just chatting, but arguing. It was quiet, controlled, but I could see the tension. Drew's smile was gone. His mouth was tight. His hand gripped the waiter's shoulder a little too firmly. The guy yanked his arm away and walked off fast. Drew glanced around, spotted me watching from near the dessert table, and just for a moment, his expression twisted. Like I'd seen something I wasn't supposed to. Then the smile came back. Quick. Practiced. He raised his glass at me, like we were still playing nice. I turned away, heart pounding. I didn't know who that waiter was. But I made a mental note. Find him. Talk to him. Later. Back at my table, I found a glass of wine waiting that I hadn't poured. I looked around. No server in sight. Maybe someone meant it as a peace offering? I didn't drink it. Instead, I reached into my purse and pulled out the envelope I'd brought. Thick paper. Handwritten name. Drew had mocked me for being the one who always made it about herself. But the truth was, I'd never asked for attention. I'd only asked for credit. Because when Dad died, Drew crumbled. Couldn't handle the estate. Didn't show up for Mom. I was the one who handled everything quietly behind the scenes. I took care of the bills, planned the funeral, packed up the house while he hid behind grief and job promotions and Melanie's hand-holding. He never said thank you. In fact, he rewrote the whole story, told relatives he handled it. That I was too emotional. That he stepped in like the dutiful son, and the worst part? People believed him. So yeah, I wrote a letter, not a speech. Not a spotlight grab, just a letter. A short one. For him. It wasn't even meant for the wedding. But now sitting there, staring at that untouched glass of wine and that smug smile across the room, I realized something. He wanted me silent, which meant he was afraid of what I might say. And maybe, just maybe, I was finally ready to say it. Not just to him, but to everyone. Found the waiter behind the venue, crouched beside a smoking brake barrel, nervously tapping a cigarette against his hand but never lighting it. He looked up fast when he heard me. Eyes sharp, guarded. I'm not here to get you in trouble, I said. I just saw you talking to the groom. He squinted at me. You his sister? I nodded. He glanced around, then blew out a shaky breath. Then I'm sorry. For what? He hesitated, looked at the cigarette again. Look, I wasn't supposed to say anything, but I overheard him earlier. In the suite, with the bride. That pulled me forward. What do you mean? They were arguing. About something serious. About you. I stiffened. He continued, voice low. She didn't want you here. Said she didn't want the family embarrassment, ruining the vibe. Your brother promised her you'd keep quiet. Said he'd handle it. That's when she asked if you was sure you hadn't found out. I blinked. Found out what? He hesitated, jaw clenched. Then, that they used your inheritance money to help pay for this wedding. My stomach turned cold. What? They said it wasn't your kind of money anyway. That you weren't doing anything with it, that you wouldn't notice. I stood there frozen. The air felt thinner. The world muffled. I remembered the lawyer calls. The vague delay in the final estate distributions after Dad passed. Drew said it was just tied up in logistics, that it would sort out later. And I believed him. Trusted him. God, I wanted to believe him. The waiter shifted. I shouldn't have said anything. You looked like you didn't know. And the way he talked to me back there, like I was dirt, he deserves whatever's coming. I nodded slowly. My hand clenched around the envelope in my purse. Everything clicked. The sudden jab at me during his speech. The smear. The fake toast. It wasn't just to embarrass me, it was to discredit me. To paint me as unstable, dramatic, attention-seeking, so if I ever did learn the truth, no one would believe a word I said. They'd already have a version of me in their heads. The sister who makes scenes. The one who always has to be the victim. He was playing chess, but I wasn't a pawn. Back inside, the dance floor pulsed with flashing lights. People were sweating through their tuxedos and heels, drinks in hand, oblivious to the venom running just beneath the surface of this fairy tale reception. I slid into my seat, breathing. Slowly, letting the fury cool just enough to focus. My whole body was buzzing, like electricity was trying to crawl out of my skin. He used my father's money, my future, to throw this wedding, to impress her family, to buy the tuxes and the flowers, and the damn ice sculpture of their initials. And he had the audacity to stand under that chandelier and paint me as the unstable one. No. I wouldn't let him have the last word. I pulled out the envelope. Opened. It inside wasn't just a letter anymore. I had added something else, copies of the financial records I'd found the night before. I'd requested them weeks ago, on a hunch. Something about how fast the estate wrapped up never sat right with me. And now I had proof. Proof that money earmarked for me, money from my father's trust, had been withdrawn in chunks over 6 months, deposited straight into Drew's personal account, labeled miscellaneous reimbursements. It wasn't enough to ruin him legally, yet, but it was enough to ruin his image, his carefully curated golden boy reputation, enough to make everyone see who he really was. And I knew exactly when to share it, because the final family toast was coming up. And this time, I was going to take the mic. The ballroom lights dimmed slightly as the DJ's voice crackled through the speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, before we close out the night, we have one final toast from the family. A few words from the bride's side, and then one from the groom's sister. My name. My cue. Drew's head turned slowly toward me across the room, his champagne glass halfway to his lips. He wasn't smiling now. His eyes narrowed just slightly, like he was trying to read my face, calculate what I was about to do. I gave him nothing. Just a small, polite smile. The kind you give to someone you're about to destroy. Before we continue, please write in the comments which country you're watching this video from. Enjoy the story. The bride's father stood first, gushed about his daughter, made a few dad jokes, got a laugh. Then Melanie's sister said something sweet about growing up together, passed the mic to Drew, who stood and offered a few more thank yous to the vendors and guests. Then, it was my turn. The MC motioned to me. I stood slowly, my heels echoing faintly on the dance floor as I walked toward the front of the room. A few people clapped. Someone whispered my name, an aunt maybe. I couldn't tell. Everything had gone strangely still in my ears. Drew wouldn't meet my eyes now. He was whispering something to Melanie, who glanced over her shoulder at me with a nervous flick of her mascara-heavy lashes. I reached the mic. Heart steady. Not racing. Steady. I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, I said, voice calm, controlled. Honestly, I thought I'd just come, support my brother, and enjoy the evening quietly. But sometimes silence gets mistaken for permission. People shifted. One or two chuckled nervously. Drew straightened, suddenly very still. So I just want to share a short story about family, about trust, and about what it costs when both are taken for granted. I felt the heat from the spotlight on my face. I welcomed it. I lost my dad a little over a year ago. My brother and I grieved in different ways. But I truly believed, we were on the same page, that he had my back, that we'd take care of things together. I let that breathe, including the estate. Now the room got quiet, truly quiet, and for months, I accepted that there were delays. I didn't question anything. I trusted him. Melanie was fidgeting now, picking at the corner of her napkin. Drew was stone-faced. But here's what I've learned, I continued. Sometimes people hide behind grief to do things they think no one will notice. I reached into my purse and pulled out the second envelope. Not the original one with the letter. This one was for the room. Tonight's celebration was beautiful. Stunning, really. The venue, the flowers, the catering, the live string quartet. But it turns out, I said, placing the envelope gently on the table in front of the DJ, a large portion of it was paid for with money that didn't belong to the groom. Gasps rippled like wind through tall grass. And I have the statements to prove it. Aunt Joan clutched her pearls. One of Drew's groomsmen muttered, "No way." Melanie's sister looked like she wanted to disappear under the table. But I wasn't done. I've already given copies to the attorney who handled our father's estate, and a few other family members who'll know exactly what to do with them. I glanced at Drew then. Just for a second, his face had turned ashen. "I loved my brother," I said. "I really did. And maybe he thinks that gives him a pass to say whatever he wants about me, to humiliate me in front of people, to rewrite history. But tonight, I finally get to tell my story." The silence that followed was thick enough to taste. I stepped back from the mic, nodded to the MC, and walked off the stage. Every eye followed me. I didn't need to look back to know Drew was unraveling, because this time, I wasn't the punchline. Drew stood frozen, for the first time that night. Maybe for the first time ever, he didn't have anything to say. His mouth opened slightly, as if he were about to laugh it off, charm the room back into submission. But nothing came out. Just silence. The crowd didn't know what to do. Half the guests looked horrified, the other half intrigued. People were whispering across tables, heads turning, phones already being pulled out. Even the DJ looked like he didn't know whether to cue the next song or dim the lights. And Drew? He looked pale, sweating, despite the air conditioning. He turned to Melanie. She was already standing, staring at him with wide, glassy eyes. "You told me that was taken care of," she hissed, loud enough for me to hear from across the room. Grabbed her wrist gently, trying to calm her. But she yanked it back. "You told me she didn't know." And then she walked off. Right past him, past the groomsmen, past me. I didn't stop her. I didn't need to, because the real damage was already done. This wasn't just about stolen money. This was about his entire image cracking under the weight of his lies. In a single evening, in the one place he thought he was untouchable, his own wedding, I had turned the spotlight around, and it burned him. I stood by the exit, watching as the crowd buzzed louder, like bees stirred from a hive. A few people nodded at me quietly as they passed. One of Drew's old college friends gave me a look that said, "Finally." Even Melanie's father, stiff and proper, paused beside me. He didn't say much, just gave me a long look and nodded once before following his daughter. Drew didn't follow. He stayed by the head table, hunched slightly, gripping the back of his chair like it might keep him standing. Good. Let him sit in it. Let him stew in the same kind of public embarrassment he'd dished out to me without flinching. The same kind of betrayal he'd thought I was too quiet, too soft, too boring to fight back against. Turns out, he never really knew me at all. Outside, the night air hit me like a wave of release. Cool, steady, real. I stepped out of my heels and walked, barefoot across the stone path toward my car. With every step, something heavy inside me began to lift. I didn't need applause. I didn't need revenge that screamed. What I got was better truth. Spoken, undeniable witness. In peace. Drew would deal with the fallout in the days to come. The lawyer, the family, maybe even Melanie, if she didn't cancel the honeymoon before the cake was sliced. But me? I was finally free of the version of myself he tried to shrink. The version who stayed quiet to keep the peace. Who accepted the disrespect, the erasure, the cruel little jokes he passed off as love. That version didn't walk out of that ballroom. Tonight, a new one did. And as I started the car, the envelope with the final set of documents sitting safely in my glove box, I couldn't help but smile at myself. He thought the microphone gave him the last word. Turns out, it was just the beginning of mine. If this story gives you chills, smash that like button and tell us in the comments. What's the most satisfying revenge you've ever witnessed? And of course, subscribe to more stories like this.